Let's say you're someone that has an amazing startup idea, but can't afford a technical co-founder, or you're just interested in the field of CS in general. This video is for you. I'm also assuming that you don't have any prior experience with software development or computer science in general. If you are experienced, don't worry, I also have some helpful advice for you on how to use ChatGPT to learn faster. So, why should you listen to me? So, the first thing is that I learned programming from a non computer science background. So, that means I never studied computer science in high school. And I had to learn computer science without having any prior knowledge about, what programming languages are, what, how do you program or anything like that actually. Today, I primarily program in Python, Java, and JavaScript. I'm also learning Golang on the side, and I also have to learn C for one of my classes. So the TLDR is that my day involves a lot of learning about programming. The other thing is that I learned programming the first time in 2021. So that was before ChatGPT was a thing. So I know the difference when it comes to, learning programming when, ChatGPT was not a thing versus how it is a thing today. So at this point, you have two options. You can either use ChatGPT or you can choose not to. Now, why would I even talk about not using ChatGPT? I mean, it makes so much sense. It gives you such detailed answers. It gives you references. It gives such great explanations, especially, dumbed down explanations that are so much better for people that are just starting out. So why would I advise against it? Now, I have a few reasons for this. And to illustrate those reasons, I will give you an example. Now, this is some Python code, and this is basically a function that prints fizz when x is divisible by 2, buzz when x is divisible by 5, and fizz buzz when x is divisible by 2 and 5. Now, when I run this function, it prints a whole lot of none over here, which is not really what I want. 0 should give me fizz buzz because it's divisible by both 2 and 5. But it says none. It also says fizzbuzz over here, but that's really not what I wanted. Now let's ask ChatGPT what's wrong. So I can copy this function and say, what's wrong with this code? And let's see what it gives me here. So, okay, so it talks about basically the fourth case where x is not divisible by either 2 or 5, but that's completely unrelated to the fact that it prints none. And the reason for that is that the error is really not in the function, but it's really here, because we're trying to print fizzbuzz, but fizzbuzz doesn't really return anything. Now, if I was someone that was just starting out to learn to program, I wouldn't really find this error because I never got a basic understanding of what functions are, because all I did was use ChatGPT. And because of that, I will probably spend hours trying to debug this and understand what's wrong. But will I be able to understand what's wrong? Probably, by probably giving a better prompt. But the problem that this illustrates is that ChatGPT is too helpful. It reduces the amount of time it takes to learn basic concepts, which is really the part of programming that you want to spend the most amount of time on. And the reason for that is that most of the programs that we make or we write are basically combinations of these basic concepts that we learned, like return statements, if statements, variables, etc. Now, you probably won't have an understanding of that if all you use to learn is ChatGPT, so you should probably follow some structured learning program or book, maybe for the first few weeks. And that's basically my recommendation, at least for someone that's just starting out. Now, for Python, I used Python for Everybody by Dr. Charles R. Reverence. I think it's a great book. It goes through all the basic concepts of Python, from functions to return statements, variables, even web scraping, actually. So the other part of the spectrum is actually using ChatGPT. And where is it really helpful, actually? ChatGPT is very, very helpful when it comes to three things. The first, and one of the most amazing features that I found, was making study timelines. Now, you can ask ChatGPT to design a study timeline for you, and this is something that you can do even when you're just starting out, even in the first few weeks, because it gives you what it was missing before. It gives you a structured way of learning. So you can tell ChatGPT to design a study for someone that is just starting out to learn programming in Python. Right. And you can specify some duration. You can say make it for 1 month, and here let's see what it says. Let's wait ChatGPT to do his thing. And this is a very decent study timeline, and I'd say it, aside from week 3, maybe you probably want to spend a little more time than a week doing a lot of this, and probably even this. This is very good. This makes a lot of sense for someone that is just starting out, and I think it's a pretty high quality study timeline. Now you can probably find better prompts on the internet and make it give you an even better or even higher quality timeline, but let's move on. So the next thing you can do is ask it to write repetitive code. Essentially, especially when you're doing projects, one of the biggest hurdles that I personally face when trying to do projects is setting that first piece of code up, or those first few files. That's really repetitive, not really interesting, and isn't really the reason why I wanted to do that project. So you can ask it to write a lot of boilerplate code, and as an example, let's ask it to write a few tests. Write 5 tests for a function in Python that adds 2 numbers. Let's see what it says. Okay, it wrote a few tests. It got the corner cases, the edge cases, which is basically cases you really want your function to work on. And yeah, this is a really high quality set of tests. Okay, now this leads me to my next point, which is you can ask ChatGPT to write design documents, or you can ask ChatGPT to write a basic understanding of the program that you're trying to write. And what you hope to achieve through this is you can gain a few keywords that you can then Google later. So let's say you're trying to create a 2D browser based game, so you can ask ChatGPT to write a design document. Let's actually say write a comprehensive design document for a 2D browser based game that functions just like Mario. I want to write this program using JavaScript. Let's see what it says. Now it gives an overview of the project, and it says you can use JavaScript and HTML, which is right. You can probably use something like that to write this. It talks about game physics, which is a big thing. You probably want to pay attention to this when you write this project. And it gives a pretty comprehensive design document actually. And this is one of the good features of ChatGPT, is that things that are more difficult to Google, or things that you will probably find difficult to discover on the internet, are easy to find through ChatGPT. And that makes ChatGPT really helpful for writing projects, or making projects for your personal portfolio and something like that. It actually went and gave us a pretty comprehensive design document. It talks about game logic, it talks about how you should structure levels, how you should design levels, how levels will progress. It talks about user interfaces. and it talks about HTML, the HTML canvas, which is probably something you want to know about if you want to write something like this. It even talks about a library that you can use, and you can probably end up googling phaser.js and discover that this is an amazing tool to create a 2D browser based game.